It takes a village, to raise a child. How are we implicated in the actions, of the youngest among us?
The Netflix show Adolescence has everybody and their mama talking about toxic masculinity, misogyny, and the manosphere. One faction in particular is all up in their feelings because of the casting. So, James, what exactly is the controversy here?
So to explain the controversy, quick, summary of what this is about. And basically, it is following the story of a young boy, maybe 12, 13, and his family after that boy is arrested for the murder of a female classmate.
I haven't done anything. You're a good dad, a great dad.
He hasn't been found guilty, he's been accused.
So we're looking at knife violence in the UK from a kid who's been impacted by some toxicity in the digital world.
Person thing.
Yeah, right. And so some people are upset because the kid and his family are portrayed by white actors. Boris Johnson recently wrote an opinion piece in the Daily Mail. It's pretty bloviating. It's long-winded, but there's a little kernel in there where he's talking about how he's upset that it's not rooted in any kind of reality because knife violence is, disproportionately perpetrated, in his words, by black individuals, right? And the thing is, this should be a story that's focusing on the crimes of black people against others, but that's not the point of this program. You're missing the forest for the trees.
Yeah, I mean, the co-creator, Jack Thorne, has said he and Stephen Graham were not trying to make this about race, and it wasn't based on any particular story that had taken place in real life.
Exactly. And it's interesting you bring that up because Stephen Graham did an interview where he's talking about how he was thinking about reading a story, a news article about a knife murder, and how he was so quick to blame the parents, right? And then he took a beat and said, well, what if it wasn't necessarily the parents' fault? What are the other issues that could go into the creation of someone who would do such a thing?
And which is what everybody has been talking about, and which the series pointed out pretty blatantly.
Exactly, right? It's this weird meditation, again, Stephen Graham's words, of how it takes a village, to raise a child, right? How are we implicated in the actions, of the youngest among us, right? And so with that in mind, it then becomes a question of, does it take a village to destroy a child? Do, people that come from a conservative, set of values with respect to a family believe in the village? How does a village raising a child or protecting a child apply if your, fundamental, belief, right, of raising one is from like a nuclear family, right? Where does the village fit in? Maybe that's a point of being upset, right? Why is it my responsibility?
Yeah.
But it's going to be someone's responsibility because some of these people will interact, right, with folks that are outside of their bubble.
And we have to look at sort of when we think about the structure of the village, right? It includes leaders at the top, and we know Elon Musk, President Trump. These are people who have been associated with the terms toxic masculinity. Elon Musk even responded to a tweet that sort of broke down this whole controversy, as just saying, "Wow." And so it's like, take it or leave it, I guess. But for me, it does raise this question of like, why were there one group of people who were really like, this is sort of a rallying cry to check in on our boys, and it's like, are they okay? Where for others, it was so focused on this idea of quote unquote anti-white propaganda.
I think that, so kind of coming back to what you said about some of the leaders at the top, right, chiming in on this or, being upset about the existence of a program like this, right? I think that this kind of flies in the face of what, like those individuals, right, they do project a certain kind of masculinity, whether it's the acquisition of power, whether it's the insane consolidation of wealth, control, these are all things that are in some way, for better and for, far more likely for worse, right? What we imagine when we think of things as masculine, right? Those are things that very, impressionable, youths might latch onto, as the thing to aspire to. And there's really no alternative, right? We don't really have a lot of good alternatives about what not even a positive,
Yeah.
masculinity can look like just a non-jerk masculinity. Stephen Graham's character, he is the dad.
I don't think you're a jerk, James.
What?
I don't think you're a
Oh,
jerk.
okay. Eddie, the character that Stephen Graham plays, he's the father. He's generally a fine guy. He's a regular dude.
Well, unfortunately, we have to leave it there, James. But before we go, I mean, this is a heavy topic. But I do want to ask, what's keeping you rooted these days?
Yeah, heavy topic, but a thing that keeps me light and on my feet is the reinstitution of what I call Black Ass Movie Saturday, which is where you just sit down on the couch on Saturday morning, watch a movie from an unofficial Black film canon, something that kind of stays in the cultural zeitgeist, and that kind of propels you on, for the weekend. Kind of keeps you plugged into the artistry and creativity.
All right. Well, James, thank you so much. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. And we want to know, what does being rooted mean to you?